News at 7.
And thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dan Corcoran. You always hear us talking about our NBC Connecticut Facebook page here on the News at 7, but tonight we're actually going to push you to a new Facebook page, one that all of you true crime fans will really be interested in. Check this out right here. Connecticut's Criminal Justice Division launched a Facebook page for its cold case unit. It's the unit's first time venturing into a social media like this. They're posting photos and information of unsolved cases from right here in Connecticut. They're even showing images from the cold case decks of cards. If you haven't heard of those card decks, it's because until now they've only been used in prisons. Each card has a cold case on it in hopes that some of the inmates who are playing card games will be inspired to report tips. Deborah Spickler, for example, was just 13 when she disappeared from Vernon back in 1968. There's a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. 16-year-old Luis Gonzalez was shot and killed outside of a grocery store in Bridgeport back in 1990. And Barbara Hamburg, a mother, was murdered outside of her home in Madison almost 12 years ago. Her story was the subject of an HBO documentary, and it's one of the hundreds and hundreds of crimes that are still unsolved right here in Connecticut. Joining us now is John Fahey, the Supervisory Assistant State's Attorney and a longtime prosecutor who now runs the cold case unit. So, John, thanks so much for talking about this with us tonight. This cold case unit is making its social media debut. What made you think, let's create a Facebook page?
The reality is this: we have for a long time used cold case decks like that with the Department of Corrections. We developed those quite some time ago, but it struck us that there are many citizens who don't have access to those decks, and this was a way that we thought of that we could both advertise those cases from the deck and give people in the general public an opportunity to give us tips and help us try to bring some justice to some long-time cases that families have been waiting decades in some cases for justice. And so this was an opportunity for the general public to have access to us where they might not think of it otherwise. And so we developed the Facebook concept.
So take us through what kinds of things and how often you'll be posting on this page.
So what we will do is try to highlight some stories, try to bring in some families to talk about their loss, and hopefully generate a tip that we won't necessarily solve a case on that tip, but it will put us in a direction that allows us to go forward and try to generate more information and hopefully end up solving a cold case, bring justice to a family who has been waiting a long time for that.
Now, there are so many unsolved cases in Connecticut right now. I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit. Is there anyone that stands out to you that you really hope to get some tips on, some closure here?
There's a couple of them. There's many of them, quite frankly. One that comes to mind that I know we've tried to focus on recently was the case of Leah Ulbrich in Hartford. She was dragged in a car and is, obviously died. Leah is a case that has always stuck out to me, having been a prosecutor in Hartford for over 28 years. It struck me as a case that someone should have seen something. Even if we solved just one out of the tips we received, it would be well worth it, this Facebook effort.
This is really interesting, all of this. Can you explain to us the process after you get a tip on one of these cases? What do you do first, and what's some of the new technology that we have now that we didn't have back then that you could actually use to help solve these cases?
Sure. So, the reality is most cold cases are solved in one of two ways. Witnesses come forward, or we're able to advance forensics to a point that we can utilize science to do that. It might be that a tip puts us onto a case that might not have been on our radar. There are so many of them. We are utilizing forensic genetic genealogy more frequently. We do have a case pending now where there were 4 sexual assaults from 1984 that we were able to solve using forensic genetic genealogy. And so every year, the tools to solve crimes get better. And if we have some eyewitnesses come forward, all the better to try to solve those crimes.
John Fahey, really fascinating, really important work that you and your team are doing. Thanks so much for talking about it with us tonight.
Thank you for talking with us.
All right. Did you get outside today?